Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another Jeep update. I know this one is, I do Jeep updates few and far between. I haven't really done a whole lot to it recently, but now I'm going to try to get a smoother, better ride out of this thing. Right now I'm running the Rough Country N2 shocks, which are an older, outdated model. These are the N2 shocks, and they are pressurized at about 200 psi. They're considered pretty soft, and I want something that rides a little better because these things are pretty jarring out on the road. They run fantastic on the trail. I had this thing out to Roush Creek and it did a fantastic job. Air the tires down, disconnect the sway bar, and this thing just felt like it was in its element. But the problem is when it goes to potholes and cracks in the road and things like that, it's jarring. So what I'm going to do is upgrade that shock to Rough Country's newer N3 shock. Now this is probably considered not a huge upgrade, but the valving is better, the ride is supposed to be better, so we're going to hope that this does the trick. I don't want to spend a ton of money on like Bilstein or Fox shocks. I mean, it is an older, cheaper build. I'm not trying to go something really high end here, so we're just going to change these out and see what happens. Now, admittedly, I'm going to start this without taking the wheel and tire off, which I know would make my life a hell of a lot easier. But I'm stubborn and I don't feel like doing that, and I will most likely regret it and take it off anyway later. But I'm going to try just doing this without taking the wheel and tire off and see how it goes. So that part went a little better than I expected. We'll just move up here to the top where I just have to remove that nut there. The only thing in my way is the alarm horn, which I don't really feel like messing with, so might be a little tight, but we'll get it. Alright, so that came out actually a lot easier than I expected considering the wheel was on there. But we'll put them down next to the N3, and they're pretty much the same size. The N3 is a hair wider, the tubing is a little bit thicker. The valving is supposed to be a lot better, so we're going to see if these actually perform a little bit better. Alright, so let's see how this goes. That's a new shock, just slipped right in place. We'll bolt it down and that'll be that. Alright, so I went ahead and I just finished up the passenger side, so that one's done as well. I didn't film this one, it's the same thing as filming the driver's side, but that's done. And again, I didn't have to take the wheel and tire off. I guess that's a benefit to having a lift kit on it. It gives you a lot more space to work with, so I didn't have to take this off. I just had to turn the wheel to the side and it was pretty easy access. Now we're going to move on to the rear, which, you know, I already put some PB Blaster on it. Hard to see, bad lighting, I apologize. Alright, so with the rear shock out, I can tell you one of the reasons I had a rough ride is this. 2 fingers, barely any pressure, all the way down, and no rebound. That's definitely shot. All right, so I started putting the bolts in the top of the shock in the rear, and I thought I would mention that this little, oh, there we go, this little thing here is actually part of the bracket. You see the whole thing moving. That holds the nuts in and everything into place. So if you can't find the threads or everything for the nut, just grab this handle here and move it around till you do. You'll see it positioned where you need it, and then you can tighten the bolts in there. Then I just gotta lift that in once I tighten those bolts up, and we'll be done. Alright, so shock is bolted up. Everything is done. Now I'm going to move on to the other side, which I'm not going to film because, again, well, I just did that one. All right, so I've been driving around for about an hour and a half now, and there is a noticeable difference between the Rough Country N2s and the new Rough Country N3s that I put on. Now, obviously the N3s are more revised version of the N2, but it's definitely a smoother ride. At first I didn't notice it that much in low speeds, but I guess the more I'm driving it, the more they're breaking in, and I am noticing even an improvement at low speeds. Definitely an improvement at higher speeds. Highway speeds, it's definitely not smooth over bumps, like overpass bridge transitions. You normally get a big jarring bump there. That's smoothed out quite a bit. And even low speed, like speed bumps in parking lots is definitely a lot smoother. It's not as jarring. So I would say overall this was a huge improvement, especially if you're going to daily drive your Jeep. And I know they're saying, oh, Rough Country is not the best shocks to be getting. And no, it's probably not the best shock out there to get. There's always Bilsteins and there's Fox shocks, but they're significantly more expensive. And if you want a low budget shock that's still going to perform well, I'm going to recommend the N3s. I think they're pretty good. I haven't tested them off-road yet, but on-road, definitely a big improvement over the N2s. Do me a favor, if you made it this far in the video, I do greatly appreciate it. Drop a like on the video for me. Hit that subscribe button on your way out if you haven't already. I'm Kevin, and I'll see you in the next upload.